The Cairngorms. One of Scotland's iconic mountain ranges. Their high latitude, high winds and unpredictable weather make these mountains one of the most challenging places to cycle in the whole of the UK. I once again caught the sleeper train from London Euston to Carnoustie to tackle the mountains alone in winter before heading out to Aberdeen along the Deeside Way. Thank you very much for watching my film. This is my first bikepacking adventure film of 2022, and I hope you enjoyed it. I bring out a bikepacking adventure film just like this every single month, so if you liked it, please consider subscribing to the channel, give this video a thumbs up, and any questions, as always, leave them in the comments. So, as you'll have seen, I got the sleeper train again from London to Carnoustie this time, and fortunately there weren't any problems with the train. The last trip I did in December, everything seemed to go wrong. If you haven't seen that, have a look at that up there, click the card or the link in the description. But thankfully it was a lot better this time. Now, I remember saying in the last film, I won't pay for a sleeper train seat anymore. I will always pay for a room, but unfortunately I had already booked the seat, and when I tried to change it, it was too late and all the rooms had been booked. So unfortunately, again, I had to sit on those rock hard seats, which really aren't comfortable, all the way to Carnoustie. But I survived, and because there weren't any problems, I got into Carnoustie really early, about 6:30 in the morning, so I had absolutely loads of time. I decided not to camp on this trip. I wanted a little bit of a rest from the camping. I did it in Storm Arwen last time, and it was -6 degrees, and I did it, I enjoyed it, but I definitely felt less stressed going to the B&Bs. I stayed at the Glen Clova Hotel in Glen Clova, and then I stayed at Struan Hall in a town called Aboyne. What was really good about that is I didn't have to worry about setting up the tent. I also didn't have to worry about battery power like I did on the last trip. I could use the drone extensively, and I knew that I could always charge up all 3 of the batteries at the hotel, so that was brilliant. So I went from Carnoustie to Glen Clova, and it was quite an easy route, to be honest. It wasn't that exciting until I got near the glen. That's where the scenery got really stunning. It was all on road, so at one point I did consider bringing the gravel bike rather than the mountain bike, but I'm glad I brought the mountain bike for the subsequent days, as I'll explain shortly. I knew the Glen Clova Hotel really well. I'd actually been there in the summer for my best friend's wedding. They got married there. I was the best man as well, so I had some really fond memories there. As soon as I left the place, I rang and inquired about booking for this winter trip. I knew that they had somewhere to store bikes, and it was just such a stunning place that I had to come back. So on the following morning, after having a really nice stay at Glen Clova Hotel, I headed up to Loch Brandy, which is about a mile walk from the hotel. It's a really lovely hike up the mountain, stunning scenery. It was very, very cold. I'd actually swum in that loch before when I went up for my best friend's wedding, and that was in the summer. It was still very cold then, so I knew it was going to be absolutely freezing. I didn't realise it was going to be completely iced over, so I actually had to smash through the ice to get into the water. But as soon as I got out, it was so exhilarating. I felt amazing, and I just had all that energy that I wanted to use to tackle the next day. So on day 2, I was planning on cycling over the mountain at the end of Glen Clova to the Spittal of Glen Muick. From that point on, you can go to Ballater. It's about 10 miles from there, and then I was going to follow the Deeside Way from there to Aboyne, and then continue the Deeside Way the following day. If you want to go to Ballater from Glen Clova without going over that mountain, it's nearly 70 miles from point to point, so it would have been a really long day in the saddle. I arrived at the end of Glen Clova, where I was greeted with some big road closed signs, and I was starting to worry again that I was going to have a repeat of my last trip where there was trees everywhere that I couldn't pass. Fortunately, that wasn't a problem. They had been cleared. But what I didn't really anticipate was how difficult it was going to be to get over that mountain. If you look at the map, when I was planning the route, there's what looks to be a road at the end of Glen Clova called Capel Road, and it's probably okay to hike, to be honest. It's not that difficult, it's not that challenging, but when you're carting a 30-40 kilogram plus bike over the mountain in the slippy, snowy conditions, it was really, really tiring. I got absolutely exhausted. It must have taken me 3 hours to get to the top there, when it definitely shouldn't have taken that long, but just because of all the stuff that I had on the bike, it just made it exhausting. It was like a full body workout. So if you are thinking about doing this route, I would recommend packing light, or if you're more experienced doing the hiker bike type thing, then it might not be as much of a challenge for you, but I don't do a great deal of that, so I found it quite challenging. When I got to the top of the mountain, it was an incredible sense of achievement. The views were stunning. The sun was just about to set. Because I did this in literally middle of winter, it really was getting dark quite early. But the scenery was incredible. There was nobody about. There was snow-covered tracks, which were a little bit difficult to cycle on, but not too bad. And it was just a fantastic experience. So if you can get your bike up there, I would absolutely 100% go and visit that. You won't regret it. So by the time I got to Ballater, I was really, really cold. It must have dropped to about -3 and the fog was starting to settle in. It was very, very dark. The sun completely gone. My plan was just to stock up there, and it wasn't a long ride really from there to Aboyne, where I was staying in Struan Hall. I followed the Deeside Way, which is part of the National Cycle Network, Route 195, and that was a really lovely break after hiking that bike up the mountain. Just going on an old railway line covered in gravel, flat surface was just a really nice experience, and it was a really good, well-maintained part of the National Cycle Network. So when I arrived into Aboyne, I was suitably knackered, and the Struan Hall guest house was fantastic. The people who ran it were so accommodating. They let me store my bike in the garage. They'd even made some homemade cakes and a big pot of tea for me to have, which was just such a welcome relief at that point. It was lovely and warm inside, and a really nice place to stay. So absolutely, if you're heading that way, if you're planning on doing the Deeside Way, absolutely check that place out. So on day 3, I got up fairly early, had my breakfast at the B&B, and then I continued on the Deeside Way all the way to Aberdeen. Again, this is a really nice part of the country. The cycle network's really good, and you can choose to go into the forest, which is, again, quite challenging. A lot of hills, a lot of steep mountains, but really, really beautiful, and it's much better than cycling on the A road. It basically runs parallel, does the Deeside Way, to the A road from Ballater to Aberdeen. It's an old railway line, so it's nice and easy to navigate, and the scenery is really good as well. I had my sleeper train booked back from Aberdeen at about 9 o'clock, so I had all day to cycle there basically. I only had about 30 miles to do, so I took it steady, did a lot of filming, took my time, and chilled for quite a bit in Aberdeen as well. I stopped in the main shopping centre, I can't remember what it's called now, next to Aberdeen train station, just propped my bike up and had a few hot chocolates and just relaxed before the train. And thankfully, again, there were no problems with the train, so I managed to make it back to London nice and early for work the next day. So that's another bikepacking adventure done. You may have noticed that I've recently changed my video descriptions in my YouTube videos to have a link to my website, cycling366.com. So on there's absolutely everything you need to know about the sort of stuff I use, so my equipment, a bit more information about me if you're interested. So everything I use is listed on there in quite an easy way to navigate. So if you wonder what sort of tent I use or what sort of battery packs I use, everything is listed on there. So I will be updating that more regularly as my equipment naturally changes. Any questions, as always, feel free to put them in the comment box. I hope you enjoyed that video, and I'll see you next month for, hopefully, an international bikepacking trip, my first one on the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.